Greetings, friends, and hope you had a happy holiday for my Christian friends who just celebrated Christmas. And that's what's brought me back out of the holiday bliss, to do a In Other News podcast, because there's some nasty stuff that's gone down against Christians worldwide this holiday season in Nigeria. And actually, this attack on Christians in Nigeria got me thinking about Christianity on a global scale and what's happening with Christianity in today's world. And I just kind of realized, well, there's kind of a nasty crusade against Christians happening right now globally that I wanted to talk about and discuss in light of current events. See, this is what other people do for the holidays. They go out and drink eggnog and sing carols and get crappy materialistic Christmas gifts. I think about conflict and the global situation of Christianity here in 2011, almost 2012. What am I talking about specifically in other news that you probably did not pay any attention to because you were too busy eating candy canes and crap? Was that on Christmas Day in Nigeria, Africa's most populous state, a wonderful country by most counts. However, there's quite a bit of religious friction going on right now. And on Christmas Day, just a couple of days ago, there were bombings and attacks at 3 different Christian churches. One in the deep northwest, I believe. One just outside of Jos, right in the center of the country. And one just outside the capital. It's capital Abuja. So 3 distinct separate attacks. They blowing stuff up, shooting people, blood on the streets. Really horrific. I don't know what the death count is. You know me, I don't really care about death counts too much. It's probably in the 70 to 100 range. Terrible, terrible business. So what's going on here, and why would I suggest that this is a kind of global phenomenon to be thinking about in the bigger picture? Well, the responsibility for the attack has already been claimed, and everybody already knew before it even happened who did it. This crazy Islamic extremist group, and I do mean extremist, called Boko Haram. Boko Haram claimed responsibility almost immediately. Like I said, everyone in Nigeria already knew it was them, because this is not the first time that they have done attacks on Christians. The name itself, Boko Haram, go wiki it, but I believe it translates something to the effect of Western education is evil. That's the translated name, so this is an Islamic extremist group of the nth extreme exponent. I mean, woo! Cuckoo! Way, way out there. Before I go any further in this podcast, let me assure you, the vast majority of Islamic folks on planet Earth do not think this way and do not support such extremist movements as Boko Haram's terrorist group, and they are labeled as a terrorist group within Nigeria. I believe they're labeled as a terrorist group worldwide. I'm almost positive the U.S. calls them a terrorist group. So the vast majority of Muslims would not support anything that Boko Haram just did or has done in the past, or some of these other things that I'm getting ready to talk about. Okay, what other things? Well, let me finish with Nigeria first. So terrible attacks. That is not even the first time. The northern part of Nigeria is mostly Islamic. The southern part is mostly Christian. And there has been this kind of friction. I've talked about it in other podcasts. The Plaid Avengers talked about it in another Plaidcast. Between the north and south in Nigeria. That actually, it's not simply based on religion. It's not that the Islamic folks in the north hate the Christians in the south and vice versa. It really is not about that. It's about political power distribution, and it's about economic power distribution. It's about a lot of things. But it keeps manifesting itself as religious attacks. So these, wacko extremists, Boko Haram, will go attack a Christian church. And to be fair, Christians will get pissed off in certain parts of Jos or around the capital and do counterattacks against Islamic communities. So this is I won't say split country. Nigeria's a troubled country, even though it's an awesome country. If you talk to people from Nigeria, they love it. There's endemic corruption there, and there is this issue, this north-south divide within the country that has now manifested itself once again right here on Christmas Day. But again, that got me thinking more globally, because I keep seeing stories, and I have a terrible memory. For those of you that know me, I actually have a terrible memory, but pieces, words, and themes stick in my brain kind of like a snowball accumulating down the hill. And once there's a critical mass, then it slams into the back of my head, and I'm like, oh, yeah! So what I'm talking about here is I keep seeing and reading over the course of the last year about attacks on Christians, and it didn't occur to me till this titanic Christmas Day attack in Nigeria that, you know, this is not even a unique theme in Nigeria. What am I talking about specifically? For those of you that follow the Arab Spring and the events that have unfolded in 2011 in Egypt, on the other side there of Africa, attacks on Christians have been increasing exponentially since the fall of Hosni Mubarak, and that's extremely troubling. Again, a lot of folks in America probably don't even know there are Christians anywhere in Africa. Shame on you. And they certainly don't think there's Christians in Egypt, because that's an Islamic society. Shame on you again. There's actually I won't say it's a sect, but it's almost like a separate little branch of Christianity called the Coptic Christians in Egypt that have been there since, oh, I don't know, a couple thousand years. And it used to be a much bigger, vibrant community, but it's a smaller community within Egypt, but it has been protected over the years by our good friend, ex-President Hosni Mubarak. That's a good thing about dictators. They can kind of keep a lid on ethnic and religious violence. So there had not been any real kind of negligible attacks against the Coptic Christians until Hosni Mubarak got chucked out in the Arab Spring. All of the chaos and tumult that's occurred around the Arab Spring has somehow ignited this kind of religious tension. It's either that, or it's just simply that bad people with bad intentions in a chaotic situation will default to their bad nature and go kill people and try to destroy stuff they don't like. But whatever the case is, there have been multiple attacks on the Coptic Christian community this year within Egypt. A couple of churches been burnt down, lots of people dead. There was even if you followed this stuff in the news, there was a specific Coptic Christian march that went out kind of demanding equal rights just a couple months ago, and they got attacked. So nasty business against Christians within Egypt too, completely unrelated to this. Elsewhere, I have for years followed violence against Christians in Indonesia. Indonesia, much like, well, I wouldn't say much like, kind of like Nigeria, has it's not a split state, but it's mostly Muslim, but they have a significant kind of minority of Christians in different parts, different islands of the archipelago that is Indonesia. It has about 14,000 islands, by the way. So it's not even on one of, it's not like on Bali. It's not on one of the big islands, but there are Christian communities on some of the smaller islands in Indonesia that regularly see violence perpetrated against them by Islamic radicals. And again, to be fair, there is counter-violence sometimes from Christian communities attacking Islamic communities within Indonesia. So this is kind of a phenomenon that it's just this critical mass that's been building. And also, we can jump on one other country, and that's Iraq. Now, Iraq has, of course, violence of every type and every description since the U.S. liberated them. Gosh, what's that, a decade ago now? For those of you that personally know me or have taken my class, you know my personal feelings is that Iraq is soon to be sliding into a civil war now that the U.S. troops have been withdrawing. Of course, there have been multiple types of terrorist groups within Iraq and terrorist attacks. Most of it, a lot of it you hear about, it's been Sunni versus Shia, right? Because Saddam Hussein himself was a Sunni. The Sunnis were the minority group. They are the minority group in Iraq, but they had all the power under Saddam. So after Saddam got his head lopped off, literally, and all of the government was Sunni, most of the military leaders were Sunni. Once they used to be in power, even though they were the minority, once they fell out of power, then the Shias were in charge. So what you've seen in Iraq, most of the violence that you've seen in Iraq for the last 10 years has been Sunni radicals attacking Shia stuff and Shia counterattacks against Sunni targets. That's been most of the stuff. And of course, the violence against U.S. troops and violence against the foreign presence and all that stuff too. But attacks on Christian churches have been on the increase just in the last couple years in Iraq too. And again, that strikes me as kind of odd. Why is this all occurring now? It could be because the U.S. troops are pulling out, because the Western protectors are starting to pull out, and in a lot of these cases, perhaps this is also true in Egypt, maybe it's probably true in Iraq. It's probably not so much that people just really hate the Christians there, is that maybe they're seen as, kind of on Team West. that they're not the local flavor and the local religion. So it's almost, I feel like this is probably what's the case in Iraq. It's more of an anti-foreigner, anti-U.S., anti-imperialist political tactic to attack a Christian church, much more than it is that, hey, we're Islamic, Shia, or Sunni, and we just think that Christians are wrong. I'm not sure that that's the case maybe anywhere. Maybe it is. Boko Haram in Nigeria, they kind of say that that's what it is, but I don't know that violence against Christians anywhere else is ideologically based. That is, we think Christians are evil, we're going to go kill them. And I don't know. I mean, every country's different, and all four of those countries I just named are in wildly different places. And I'm not talking geographically. They're in wildly different places developmentally. Some are in active war, some are rich, some are poor. Some are chaotic, some are stable. I mean, some are democracies, some were dictatorships. So there's not even a common thread of what's going on in these countries that might incite violence against Christians. But it seems to be happening, and it does seem to be on the increase. Nigeria may be the worst possible place for it to happen right now. But let me throw in this disclaimer. Nigeria is an extremely populous state. Millions and millions. I don't want to say 60, 70, 80. No, actually more than make 80 or 90 million people. And the state has a lot of Christians. It has a lot of Muslims, but it has a lot of Christians. It's kind of the closest one you have to kind of a split state. The north is Muslim, the south is Christian. But there's lots of Christians there. The reason I'm telling you that is they're not going anywhere. The friction that's occurring in Nigeria may actually get much worse because there's so many on both teams. Got it? Let me come back to Nigeria, but let me jump to Egypt for a second, because one of the bigger holistic themes I want you to think about is that in the Egyptian scenario with violence against Christians, there ain't that many of them. And it's a number that's growing smaller. You know what? That's probably true in Iraq as well. So there's not a whole lot of folks in either one of those countries that are Christian, not big numbers. And with the ramped up violence against them, you're seeing people who are like, screw this. I can go to lots of other Christian countries and not die. So there's kind of an exodus that's been occurring within Iraq and Egypt with their Christian populations. And I'm pointing this out because big repercussion to think about. You may be seeing the end days of Christianity, of Christians, in Egypt, Iraq, and maybe the Middle East as a whole. The trend right now is that the region where Christianity was born may soon not have any Christians in it. Food for thought. Think about that. Now let's go back over to Nigeria. There's too many Christians there. They're not going to get pushed out, all right? What I'm much more fearful of, as is the Nigerian government, as is the U.S. government, as is a whole lot of religious people and religious leaders in Nigeria, is that this situation could be devolving into a true full-on religious war. It was actually speculated about within 24 hours of the attacks on Christmas Day, just 2 days ago. So a lot of people, smart people in Nigeria and the world are like, ooh, this does not look good for Nigeria. Why? Millions of people on both teams, on each team, that are kind of entrenched geographically as well. That's always something to consider. They're up there, the other team's down here. And there's too many of them for anybody to be able to win. So what you might see is this kind of protracted, all-out war that might break out. Now, the Boko Haram folks, they're in it to win it. They make no bones about it. We want to kill everybody. We want to kill all the Christians. We don't care. Because their main goal is to spread Islamic law or Sharia law to all of Nigeria. That or perhaps break the northern part of Nigeria away and become its own Islamic state. Who knows? The Nigerian government, for its part, has said, hey, you know, each sub-state of Nigeria, kind of like the United States of America, you know, Virginia has laws and California has laws. Nigerian government said, no, that's up to the states. The sub-states of Nigeria can decide if they want to have Sharia law or not. And as you might figure, most of the northern states in Nigeria do have Sharia law. They are mostly Islamic communities. However, even that's been frictional because there's Christian communities within those Islamic sub-states of Nigeria who've said, hey, why should we have to the standard of Islamic law be applied to us. We're not Islamic, we're Christian. And that's problematic. Nigeria probably needs the state government, the federal government, needs to pick up its game and figure out what it's going to do here, because this looks like it could be spiraling out of control, with Boko Haram now having no problem whatsoever attacking Christian churches in broad daylight on Christmas Day, and with a pledge, no, we want this whole state to be an Islamic state, and we're going to keep blowing stuff up until we get it. This is extremely problematic, and this is kind of big repercussion number 2 I want you to think about. This has been very bad for the Nigerian government. A country that's been doing pretty well, by the way. Their economy is gangbusters, man. And in particular, their new president, I say new president, but he's new in the sense of he just officially got elected to the term he's in. He took over for a president who died before him, while he was kind of like the vice president. But he just got elected to another term a few months ago, and his name's Good Luck Jonathan. Great name. And Good Luck is having bad luck with this, because this makes the Nigerian government look ineffective and weak when you have this kind of overt violence occurring on a very extremely important religious, day for a specific group of your citizens. And this has shaken the people's confidence in their own government in a very big way. In a very big way. And again, Nigerians are a group of folks who actually really like their country, have a strong sense of national pride, and the economy's doing well, and it's the most populous country in Africa, and they have tremendous amounts of oil that they're exporting, so they're going to get richer. Construction's bustling and booming right there. So they have a lot going on, and maybe that's part of the friction between these two groups, because probably a lot of that growth is in the south and not in the north, and now you layer on the religious divide on top of disparities of wealth or disparities of political power or other things, and that's probably what's going to light the fuse in Nigeria. Again, I'm not the one suggesting that a religious war is going to break out in Nigeria. Nigerians are. People are really worried that now there's going to be counter-violence, that now, of course, Christians are really upset and pissed, and so that Christian groups in certain places where these atrocities occurred might counterattack Islamic communities, and then it's just a free-for-all. So that's really kind of nasty business. But I've already talked too much about this anti-Christian crusade that seems to be ramping up worldwide, so I'll kind of summarize or walk away with this last holistic thought. My big problem, well, I have a problem with violence against anybody. And by the way, before I get to my last holistic thought, I should tell you, I'm not a particularly Christian person. I'm not up here spouting because I want to, incite some sort of message about how we need to go save the Christians. No. You know me. I'm all about world events and want you to understand the world. And that brings me to my holistic afterthought here. My big fear is that these attacks against Christian communities in multiple parts of the world that are on the increase is really going to serve to further entrench, get ready for this, anti-Islamic sentiment that already is out of control in parts of the world like Europe and the United States and other places. I don't have a solution for that, by the way. My fear is that this is going to further divide these two great religious traditions, of which both of them have over 1 billion followers worldwide, against each other. And that's a terrible, terrible thing. Because, of course, we already have too much kind of anti-Islamic fervor among radical groups in the West and in other places. I shouldn't say the West. There's anti-Islamic fervor in some people in India, in China. So I fear that will be exacerbated because I'm just going to call a spade here. All of the violence against Christians that I have summarized in the last 20 minutes has all been perpetrated by Islamic radicals. There ain't no other players here. That's what it is. So my big fear is that those negative thoughts, this division, this religious division, not even a division, but this pairing off into two teams and that they're going to fight, that are having these open conflicts all over planet Earth, is going to further entrench anti-Islamic thought and maybe even further entrench anti-Christian thought. Hell, I don't know. But I think it's a terrible thing for this to have occurred in the holiday season, or really any time. But given that a lot of Islamic folks all over planet Earth already think that the West is out to get them, IEC, invasion of Iraq, invasion of Afghanistan, the possible future invasion of Iran, stay tuned later this year. that I wonder if these things aren't tied together, and they're certainly going to exacerbate each other over the next year to 10 years or however long this kind of world, us versus them nonsense lasts. Again, sorry for such a, not dismal, but negative message here in the holiday season, but it's kind of, it's a Christian holiday season that we're in, so I thought you should know what's going on with the Christians worldwide. And maybe I should do some other In Other News podcast this week. If you guys like, you can, of course, make comments down here. If you have any themes you'd like me to hit upon, any other global themes, or maybe summarizing themes of what happened the year in review of 2011, or maybe what might happen in 2012. So let me know. Hope you enjoyed this and learned a little something. Hit me up if you want to see some more podcasts this week, ramping up for the new year. And if I don't see you before then, Happy New Year. Hope 2012 is less violent than the last year just was. Party on.